You're listening to the Banríon Show. It's 8 in the evening. Tune in every night at 8 to listen to the Banríon Show on Irish News Radio or ITV.ie. And you can contact anything that you've heard or if anything you'd like to discuss at news@irishnews.net.
The Banríon Show, this is Irish News Radio on ITV.ie. More disgrace about this government and the EU. The Irish signed the rights to their own children to the state, and believing that it was better, and there was child abuse cases, and that some way that the state would be better. I don't know why that the Irish would actually think that the state would be better at protecting their own children than their own parents. I don't know how they were convinced that. But already, Tulsa, which has a huge long history in other countries about child abuse and paedophilia, has now come out that Tulsa, the child protection in Munster area, was arrested for child porn. And at the same time, they're taking children away from parents for stupid reasons like parking tickets. Parents are being investigated if the child doesn't eat a sandwich in school, or if the parents were pro-life, or if the parents are some way right-wing, what they see as right-wing. These are the truth now, people. It may sound like a crazy story, but I personally know a few women who've been investigated for nothing more than their son didn't eat a sandwich in school, or their daughter came in upset. They don't have to prove anything. If a teacher or if a principal or your neighbour or somebody has a grudge against you, anyone can ring up and say that there doesn't have to be proof, or Tulsa will come out to the door and will keep on investigating you even when it's proven that it didn't happen, that it was made up. It doesn't matter. Tulsa will keep investigating you. And a few people, they've accused them of being on drugs for nothing more than an antihistamine or some flu tabs or something like that. There's a few cases like that where they've insisted the person had been on drugs. Now, a few mothers that I know don't even drink or smoke, never mind take drugs. It's just because of their views. But it's a paedophile ring, and this is going to blow up huge in the Irish face again, a bit like what it did with the Catholic Church. They don't want to believe it, but it was a stupid thing to actually assume that the state would care for a child more than their own parents. Of course, abuse happened in the past and it was terrible, but their own parents is the best place for a child, any child, to be. Like there is extreme cases, but having the state responsible for your children, that's where we're going to be leading into exactly what happened with the Catholic Church. Children are better with their own parents, and the parents make the better decisions. And dumbing down the nation and giving them propaganda, leftist bullshit and liberal agenda. The whole country is in a very, very bad way. And they'd be better off being homeschooled. Children these days would be better off being homeschooled because the schools are as liberal and leftist as the government and the media. And that's why it's important to get on and donate to the station, because this is probably the last chance of freedom here, of being able to talk about situations that we won't be. In the probably near future, they've already brought in that hate speech law. In the near future, you won't be able to have a station. You won't even be able to be seen walking down the streets where you could be reported for hate. Because hate speech, it doesn't exist. Like, it's very hard. How are you supposed to monitor that? I don't like that you say something about the EU. I don't like you said that about the Muslims. I don't like you say that about the Irish. I don't like you say that about the French. I don't like you say that. Like, how far do you go? How far can you monitor this? And it will be monitored. And once you start that scary road of getting rid of free speech, the end of that road, there's no end to it until you're monitored in your own home. And then the neighbour who doesn't monitor you will be reported. So say they say, oh, I saw somebody getting into a taxi with somebody else and the taxi man didn't report that. Well, then the taxi man could be reported. This is where it's a dangerous, slippy slope into everything you're doing. It's a communism state. And that's not the way, and that's certainly not what our forefathers died for. It was for Ireland, for the Irish ways, for the indigenous Irish, and the love that they had, that they went out to kill and die. They loved for their nation to be free, to have a Gaelic nation, to have a country that would be able to be free to speak their Irish language, to practice their own religion, to have a country for their own indigenous people. And that is far from what the EU intend, and far from what the government does. And people, you're still asleep. It'll either turn into war or there'll be a collapse. Like, the future is very, very bleak. Anyway, thank you for listening. If you want to talk about any of the discussions we've talked on today, it's news@irishnews.net. Thank you very much again for listening. And donate to the station, because we're running out of time and we need to promote stations that are free thinking, away from Dennis O'Brien and his liberal breaking down of identity and cultures. Because once that rainbow is gone, you can never get it back. Once you killed off the Native Americans, there's no, you can't recreate that. And that's what's beautiful about the world, is all our different cultures. I know, it doesn't mean it's any better. The way I explain it to people is, look at a rainbow. Is it green better than purple? Is purple better than pink? Obviously not. They're just colours. You may prefer one. But with the hate speech coming in, you may not be allowed to prefer one. To say, I prefer white people, I prefer Chinese people, I prefer Indians. You may not be allowed to do that, particularly if you prefer white people. And that's wrong. It's a rainbow. And maybe some of you will prefer pink, blue, green. But that's a preference. And that you shouldn't be forced to see them all the same. Like, they're all the equal value, but they're not all the same. And you may have a preference to pink rather than blue, or vice versa. It doesn't really matter. The point is that you should be allowed the freedom to do that. And that is not what's happening. And particularly with this hate speech coming in. 2 years in prison. If you say you prefer white people, they may decide that that's hate speech. You say you prefer Christianity, it could be considered as hate speech. And as far as, like, you can't make everything even, because it's just not even. Everything is different. But that's a good thing, and that should be the strength, like a rainbow. No point destroying the rainbow to make it into nothing. And you've just destroyed everything that's beautiful about the world. And the way it's supposed to be is all different cultures, different languages. And that's what makes the world beautiful. By getting rid of that, there's no point travelling. It would be a horrible, horrible state of a world if everything was the same. What makes the world beautiful is that it is different, that you can go to a different country and experience different culture, different taste, different foods, different languages. But the EU is destroying that in Europe. And there was a lot of different cultures in Europe, and they're trying to make it all one. And that's wrong. Absolutely wrong. It doesn't mean that they say that, oh, having different cultures mean that you prefer one. Of course you may prefer one, but that's okay. It doesn't mean it's better. It's just your preference may be to one. And that should be absolutely free if we were in a freedom, and that's what our forefathers died for and what they wanted, and that's the way. Again, if you need to talk about anything, it's news@irishnews.net. If you want to write in or talk about anything. So you're on the Banríon show, and please tune in at 8 o'clock every evening. We'll be having these discussions about subjects that you will not hear on other stations. So it's important, donate and keep the station growing, and it will grow because people are more waking up. And pass on this, pass it on and share it with people so that you can help each other wake up and say, you know what, we need to stop paying our taxes. There's not a question anymore. We need to just go to your employers and say, I'm not paying. I actually will sort that out myself, thank you very much. And go and ring the tax office and just stop. Stop. Get paid in cash. Just stop. Stop paying for them. There is no point in having a government if they're not working for the people. And remember, people, we are the people with the power. The government works for us. And right now, the government's working against us. So we need to stop paying them and stop empowering them. The only way we can empower ourselves is taking the power away from the government. That means stop paying them. And that means spread it. Get everyone to stop paying their taxes and pay for cash. Until we break down this government, we're heading into a war. We're very close to losing our culture and our identity. With Project 2040 on the way, 1 million of non-Irish, Muslim, Africans. I have no problem with Africans in particular. Muslims is an ideology, it's not a country. And I have a big problem with that coming in because it's dangerous. It's dangerous on their own people, but it's very dangerous on Irish women and children. And the government has no interest in protecting Irish women and children. Far from it. And that's where things are scary. And either you stand up and fight for what you believe in. Because there's no point living as a slave. You're better off dying free and dying for a cause you believe in. So it's time, while you still can, because there won't be a time where they'll have got rid of cash in another few years. So they can literally get into your bank account and take money out that they say that you owe them. Or they can absolutely stop your money. So while we still can, you need to start thinking, stop paying your taxes, start taking back the power, use cash, barter, use your brain, people, because you know what you're really being paid for is your labour. Your labour is priceless. There's no actual law that can make you pay for your labour any more than if you swapped a top for a pair of shoes. Don't owe the government anything. So you've got to see your work like that, and you've got to start using your brains, because we need this government out. The Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and Sinn Féin, we need them out, because we the people have the power, but we just need to connect and use our brains and say, you know what, we need to take them down. The only way by taking them down is to stop paying our taxes and use everything in cash, and then demand we have a government for the Irish people, for the Irish indigenous native population, to keep them safe and to keep their country for themselves, and make sure that every Irish indigenous native person has a home, and that they're put first in education, put first when it comes to healthcare, put first every single time on their own land. And then, only then, should we look at another nation. And we should only look at that nation as, what do we need? What do we need? Do we need agriculturals? What do we need? And then we can look at places that are similar to our culture, similar to our thoughts and our ways of life, that will be easy to assimilate in, that will not be a danger to our women or to our children. Only then. And that they will have to go through a series of tests. One of them making sure that they have that their health is okay before they come into this country, that they don't have any diseases, that they don't have AIDS or they don't have any diseases. And we should not be taking anybody who has health implications. We have enough of our own problems. And then, after they test that, do we need them? What skills have they got? Can an Irish person not do that? And if we need them, we take them in. But places like South Africa, where the whites are being killed, they assimilate. Their culture is very similar. They're not a danger to our women or children. They'll assimilate in, they work hard, and they'll appreciate this country. They're the ones that we should be looking at. But first, our native population needs to be looked after, and the government needs to be gone. And then, yes, we need to be looking at countries that do assimilate into our country, and not taking cultures that are completely have no women's rights, and no children's rights or animal rights, and are coming in with diseases and criminal records and terrorist organisations. These need to be vetted out, and we shouldn't even be still in the country. We can't even throw out ISIS, proven ISIS terrorists in this country, because the EU and the UN, so-called, their human rights come before the Irish indigenous population, their rights to stay in our country and put our lives in danger. It's more important to the EU and the UN and our own government than the indigenous population's lives are worth. And that tells you who our government is working for, and it's not us, the indigenous people. This is where we need to wake up and realise it's not all rosy. It's far from it. And we've little time. And it's a bad place, people, a very bad place. ISIS and known terrorists are living in this country. They've been trying to be taken out by the courts a few times, a few of them. One of them a well-known trainer for ISIS. They brought him into court a few times. The EU and the UN went against us and said, no, because of his human rights he has to stay. They didn't think about our human rights, and nor does the government. Anyway, thank you very much for listening on the Banríon Show on Irish News Radio. Tune in again, and we'll have many of these discussions. But people, start using your brain, because we're running out of time. Europe's been destroyed by the EU, and they're robbing the continent of Europe as if Europe is EU. EU is like a company. It's like a Nazi regime. It is not Europe. They're robbing each and every country and breaking it down, and destruction of the indigenous population on each country. Time to wake up. Thank you for listening. Hello, you're listening to the Banríon Show on Irish News Radio and ITV.ie. So we're talking about the EU because it's Thursday and the mess we're in. But really the mess is the Irish government have put us in a disgusting, despicable human being. But, you know, he wasn't the first. He's a horrible... I can't actually stomach him. I wouldn't be able to look him in the eyes. The destruction of our country, and when you listen to our constitution, the love that they had for the indigenous people and our race as people, and for it to be wiped out with his... If you haven't seen his 2040 project... Absolutely, I can't even watch it and my stomach just turns. It's disgusting. It would make you sick. It's far from any love for the indigenous Irish, and it's very obvious that the government, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Sinn Féin, have absolutely no love for the indigenous Irish. It's 1 million people. If you have a look at the 24 project, 1 million people, it's a replacement of the native Irish, an absolute replacement. And it completely, absolutely, it's disgusting. It would make you sick. The EU is destroying what our ancestors have left for us, and what they went through the famine, all the wars, the turmoil, to leave us the legacy of Ireland, for Ireland to be free, to be neutral, to be sovereign. And when you listen to their words, when you read their articles and the Constitution, you can hear the passion and the love, and you know that we declare the right of the people of Ireland to ownership of Ireland. I mean, and for it to unfettered control of their own destinies, to be sovereign, to be independent. Now that's far, far from what we are. You know, there's 30,000 non-Irish on the housing list. 30,000. There's 10,000 Irish homeless. We pay 6 billion on debt to the EU. We pay 43% of the EU banking crisis on our heads. We signed it. Now, the man, Brian Cowan, who signed it, who was a nervous wreck, I think, you know, in fairness to Brian Cowan, I do think he was forced and bullied into it, and he had no backbone. And I do think he probably was the last of the ones that actually had any feelings for the Irish people, and I do think it was a huge toll on his health and everything. I do actually think he had a love for the Irish people, and I think he probably went into his job, one of the last ones. Certainly none of the ones in now, even Michael D, the little pedo, is a disgusting character and has no love for the Irish. The ones that are in now are, I don't know, they're almost like aliens. You can't relate to any of them. They absolutely have no love. You've got that children's minister who's not even Irish again, who's Canadian, who absolutely, you can see it, has contempt for the Irish people. They don't want the Irish people. I don't know whether it's, you know, they want this global thing, or they actually just can't stand the Irish. They think that there were less, and Leo being half Irish, he has no love for the Irish. I think he'd probably like them all to be mixed or non-existent, and his Project 2040 is very obvious when you see the pictures of them. They're certainly not white, indigenous, freckled people of what the Irish are known of, and certainly won't have any Celtic race left. And this is horrible, absolutely horrible. The sovereignty of this country, it's either the sovereignty or the destruction of the Irish island, and that's the only choice we have. Now, we do have choices. There's an Article 39, and this is where we are now. We're in a stage where the government and the EU are working to break down our country. And in Article 39, you can see it's against the Irish people. It acts against people involved in acting against the Irish people on behalf of the non-Irish powers. We're neither elected or nor citizens of Ireland. So we need to fight back this. They're bringing in this hate speech, which is a very, very scary thing. Now, this is a complete government agenda, and you need to get on to this. It's Conservative Comeback Ireland have put it on their page, and it's very scary. You get up to 2 years. This is a complete government agenda. And if we don't overthrow this government, we're running out of time, people. It is scary. 2 years. Now, hate speech. Well, who's to say what hate speech is? Are you talking about what I am now? That can be damned. I'm talking about the government and how disgusting it is. You know, you definitely won't be allowed to talk about Islam. You probably won't be allowed to talk about the EU. We're going to go back. Are we going to go to a stage where communism was, where I have to report somebody, and if I don't report somebody doing something, then somebody will report me for not doing something, so we're all frightened of it. And you have the Irish people in a very frightened little box, so they'll all be reporting hate speech, or they'll be afraid they'll be reported for not reporting it. This is dangerous times when you start, what is hate speech? Like, you know, you condemn it as anything, you know what I mean? Like, the Irish were called paddies, mix and whatever for years and years. We actually started calling ourselves paddies. We didn't go around kind of crying. This is scary. This is literally, you will have people ganging up on each other, and that's what the government wants. But it's time to fight back, and we're running out of time. And we need to fight back. The government is complete leftist, liberal, absolutely destructive of the Irish indigenous population, and that's what they want. Them with the globalists is absolutely. And we have to believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything that we own. Because if we don't, there is no Ireland. There is no more future for our generations of our children. There is nothing left. There is nothing to hold on to, nothing to die for. Our race, after all our forefathers, all the wars, the famines, everything they went through, it's worth nothing. They died for nothing. And that's scary that we would, you know, that we don't have a love for our own people after everything that's been done. And you know, it's strange because it came from a time like where we were always told, you know, the Irish brilliant, we fought through this, we did that. It's like the younger generation are EU programmed to absolutely think they're actually something like EU as if it's a fucking place or something. EU is not Europe. And I've said it to my children so many times. It's like, where is EU? It's not bloody Europe. There's a lot of your countries in Europe that are not in the EU. EU is something else. It's like a business, if you like. And it's a destruction of the European people. It's absolutely destroying them. And every individual European country is fantastic, beautiful. But that they should not be stuck together and be made like United States of Europe, because each European country is fabulous for their own culture, their own history, their own way of life, and that's what makes Europe such an amazing, beautiful place. By destroying it, breaking them all down and turning them into one. It's just like going to a rainbow and kind of going, all right, all these colours in the rainbows are far too hard to manage, let's just turn it into one colour. You're just destroying the beauty of the rainbow. You're not achieving anything, and your destruction of it. And that's what's happening to Europeans. We're all being destroyed. All our beautiful rainbows is being destroyed, and our beautiful country, who people have died for, and it was a hard 800 years of war. Well, 700, depending on what you look at, 700 to 800 years of war, and for it to be given away. And absolutely, you know, disgraceful. And considering the Irish people voted out 3 times, it is an absolutely disgrace that the Irish are being blatantly ignored. Every time they're being blatantly. And listen to their words. Go back and listen to the real forefathers who loved and had a passion for this country and had a passion for us. Little did they know, you know, a few generations, 100 years of their beautiful, passionate writing of who, and their hopes and their dreams who would be. Certainly not giving it away to another foreign power. Was their last of their thoughts, and they wrote out their article of the Constitution to cover it in every way so it wouldn't happen to us. But here we are again, because our voices have been blatantly ignored, and we have a very, very dangerous, corrupt government who's a Project 24 to replace us. And we are being replaced, people. You're just stupid, you can't see it. It's like you've been told, oh, it's hate speech. Everything's been hate speech to shut you up, to put you in fear. You can't be in fear, people. Do you think those our forefathers were in fear? Of course they were in fear, but they knew they had no choice. Now this is even more controlling. This is like you can't speak about it. And we're not knitting together. You know, we need to kind of come together and go, this is enough. We need to be able to speak about things. We need to be able to say, our government is absolutely despicable. They're replacing us. And instead of kind of fighting back, we're like worried about being locked up. And this is terrible that they're putting this on us. The same as the abortion. Oh, you know, if you don't bring in abortion, we can have to lock up these girls for taking the pill. Like, this bullshit. He's the government. He doesn't have to lock up anybody. The lies and the deceit and out of your innocence and your naivety, you're believing everything he says. You don't have to bring in a law to lock up people. If they were taking the abortion pill, you wouldn't do that. There was no need to bring in abortion. They brought it in through lies. Blatant lies, because they're going to make money out of those dead babies. They will be sold on to stem cells. It was what the EU wanted, so our government forced it through. There was no need. There was 22 abortions last year for crisis. For women who actually needed abortions, or for 2 of them were for suicides. It was brought in for another money-making game. Our country's been taken, and you're all asleep. It's time to wake up and fight back. Listen to the words from the past. Do you think it's anything like the government is running now? And, you know, some people say it's evolving. This is not evolving. This is destruction. Would you blow up a building and say it's evolving? No. You say it's destruction. That is what it is. It's not evolving anything. It's blowing up something is not evolving it. Listen to the words of the past. We, the people of air, humbly acknowledge all our obligations to our Lord Jesus Christ, who sustains our fathers through centuries of trial, gratefully remembering their heroic and lamenting struggle to regain the rightful independence of our nation. And then our nation, the whole island of Ireland and the territory seas, Ireland is a sovereign, independent country. Now, is that something you hear? The passion, the love, the independence? No, you hear Fianna Fáil going on about looking at independence as backwards. Fine Gael having Project 2040. Sinn Féin having non-Irish Muslim fucking worshipping going on. The whole thing is fucking scary, people. And then they're bringing in hate speech. So if you can talk about this, even be seen to be talking about it, they can rat on you. Soon you won't be able to have a congregation of people that might have spoken out, because you might be told on. It's like, they might ring you up. I saw such and such going in there. They're believed to have some extreme views, extreme. And what is extreme views? Like, there's a difference between extreme views on somebody saying you must kill all these people and blow them all up and they all have to be whatever. That's an extreme view, right? But, and I do think that's dangerous speaking, and that happens in Islam, but obviously nobody will do anything about that because it's Islam and they're above the law. But, it should be done. But if you're not actually hurting or you're not actually blowing up someone, it's only bloody words. And words are not the same. And they go, it starts from words. You have to have freedom of speech. Without that, we are all living in fear because, say you have a grudge with somebody, you can report them, like what's happening with that stupid Tusla thing, which ends up, you have a grudge on someone, you can report this woman, she's not minding her children, I saw her leave her child, and there doesn't have to be proof, there doesn't have to be anything, and those children can be taken away. And there's been stories about people's children being brought up to Tusla because they were pro-life, or because the child didn't eat the sandwich, or because she got a parking fare. And then lately there's been stories in the Mail that Tusla, there was a whole group who were involved in child pornography. And this is the real reason why they're taking your children. And that government makes me sick. I think there is an awful lot of paedophiles in our government. There is an awful lot of breaking down our civilization. And it's more than just the hate of our country. I actually think there is a lot of paedophiles in our government. And they've just, like a sick little club, they've hired each other. They're not right. None of them are right. And none of them have a love for us. And unless we fight back, and as I talked before, let's stop paying our taxes. Pay everything in cash. Take everything out in cash. Don't let them know where you are. Don't give them any information on you. Don't, let them have any control, because there is one day that they will come and stop your bank account if they feel like it. If maybe you said something bad about the government, or maybe you said something bad about the EU, or maybe you said something bad about Islam. Certainly things that they can control you. They'll reach into your bank account and take your money out. You need to stop paying your taxes and go to your landlord. We don't have to pay our taxes, or go to your employer and say, listen, I'm paying my own taxes from now on. I'll look after that. Thank you very much. And there's nothing they can do. If that's your choice, that's your choice. It's you between the government. And then you ring them up and you just don't pay them. You stop paying. You ask for everything in cash and you pay everybody in cash. You stop having control. Until we can take back this government, take back control of our country and take it out of the EU. And, England's right getting out of it. They have such a corrupt and they have a long way to go, but at least they've got steps of getting out. Now, we're absolutely fucked without them, but it's the right thing. The EU needs to be dissolved, and we need to dissolve our government. We need to stop paying the taxes. Thank you very much for listening. You're listening to the Banríon Show on Irish News Radio and
You are listening to Irish News Radio and irishnews.net. email news@irishnews.net.